ought to be addressed in some plan is that there appears to be an overabundance of capacity from the district's perspective in the Southwest at the elementary level. So looking through a number of scenarios, this balances the student capacity with student enrollment with the building capacity. At the Northeast, there's just the opposite problem. There is a lack of adequate facilities in the Northeast. So in this plan, we are addressing the abundance, the excess of capacity in the Southwest, the lack of capacity in the Northeast, and we are redistributing the large capacity in the middle equitably among districts, schools with equitable educational environments, which we think is an overall goal of the plan. This is the final educational adequacy scenario modeler. You can see that our educational adequacy has gone to 74-66. It's insatisfactory, meaning it will meet the needs of today and the needs of tomorrow. Our cost-benefit ratio has gone to 72-50.52, which is a significant improvement. And again, that's a measure of value, which means that this is a wiser investment. And then what I also want you to see is the capacity. We now have capacity of 249, which means that's the capacity for the programs that we want to hold. That means special programs are held in spaces suitable for special programs. Our science rooms are held in spaces suitable for science. It's the educational goal that are the driver of this plan. So a final comparison between the status quo, what we would do, and the draft master plan. We are proposing that you consider going from 23 facilities to 20. Even though you are reducing your facilities, you are actually increasing square footage. And again, that's driven by the requirements of your educational programs. Again, in order to accommodate the programs that you want to have, we have envisioned the proper space for that to occur. So you're actually going to a slightly larger inventory of buildings. You are doing this with a fairly, you saw the costs, I forgot to read them, but that's a fairly significant front-end investment. $67 million the first phase, I think it's $82 million the second phase, and $79 the third phase. That is a significant investment for any community. And yet, you're doing this because of operational savings, reducing the number of buildings, reducing the cost to heat and cool those buildings, the staff to run those buildings, and avoiding the costs for repairing those buildings. You're doing that for very close to the same price as really the status quo. So what you'll do is with that very close to the same price, you will drastically improve your schools, bringing them from borderline to satisfactory at a much higher cost-benefit ratio, which we think is a much wiser use of taxpayer funds. So this proposal for your consideration, we believe, creates educational excellence by creating 21st century learning environments, spaces designed for the educational program, spaces which provide equitable learning environments across the district. That's a big issue now. In high-performance educational environments, meaning environments that support the ways students learn, with lower student-teacher ratios. They incorporate community-packed recommendations. You've got your recommended grade level configurations, your recommended facility sizes, and your recommended facility upgrades that were determined through all of the community meetings. It provides educational efficiency by balancing facility capacities with projected enrollments, by reducing the number of facilities to operate, heat, and cool, and through corresponding reduction of the resources needed to operate those facilities, and through high-performance building renovations. Finally, in our opinion, it's a smart plan because it has a great cost-benefit relationship. It provides an excellent learning environment at a cost which is projected to be approximately equal to the cost of maintaining the status quo. I believe Franklin Hill and Associates and BLDD architects feel that this is a prudent plan moving forward. Is it the best plan? It's important what we think, but it's much more important what you think. What will follow, what we're looking for, is your ideas on what you've heard. We expect two types of ideas, at least I do. One says, hey, that plan has some merit, makes some sense, but you might want to change this. So maybe there's some improvements that you would like to suggest. Or two, maybe you didn't like what you heard, and maybe you think that there is a better scenario which we should model. That's the input that we're looking for tonight, and with that, I will turn it over to the community. Packed committee. Thanks. Thanks. Steal this for you.
Okay, now we'll take a look at the small group work activity. And I'd like to just remind you to have each group select a recorder and spokesperson. And the responsibilities for each of those are included on your worksheet. And also, please make sure that the information recorded on the worksheet reflects the consensus of the group. Okay, now I'd like to point out that each of you should have the instruction sheets in your yellow packet. However, the blue sheet, that is your recorder's sheet for your group, that has plenty of space for you to write your consensus comments. Here are the tasks. I'd like to go through those two tasks with you before you begin. Okay, task number 1, the draft facilities master plan. In tonight's CES, Dr. Franklin Hill and Mr. Sam Johnson presented a draft of a SJSD comprehensive long-range facilities master plan. Use the space below to record your group's consensus suggestions for strengthening the plan. Suggestions consistent from a majority of the groups will be reflected in updating or revising the plan. Okay, now we'll go through task number 2, instructions. Packed community engagement sessions began in February 2010, and this is CES 11. At each of the CES, key information has been learned from 2 sources, the formal presentation and the consensus of participants in response to specific tasks in small group discussions. The facilities evaluation study also contributed to information learned during the PACT process. As a result of information learned during the PACT program, a draft set of statements of recommendation has been created. When finalized, these statements, along with the proposed facilities master plan, will be PACT's official recommendations to the Board of Education and intended to be viewed as action items for SJSD's comprehensive long-range plan. Please review the draft statements under each category and the additional considerations. Come to consensus on any comments or suggestions that your group believes would strengthen the statements. Provide those comments in the space provided in each category. Suggestions consistent from a majority of the groups will be reflected in updating or revising the statements. And then I'd like to just ask that if you are at a table that has less than 4 people at it, if you'll please join another group. We'd like to have groups of a minimum of 4 going through the draft statements and the facilities master plan. Okay, so now I'll give you time to work through that. Again, thank you very much for your time.